Colorado has a chance to reclaim their season tomorrow. All they have to do is upset a frisky and really good UCLA team.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Moore. But today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today's episode, we are talking about Coach Prime in Colorado trying to upset UCLA. We're going to be talking about a recruiting mishap that happened recently, and then the final stretch of Colorado season. But first, I want you guys to know that this podcast, Locked On Buffs, we're here every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. It's your team every single day right here. Okay, let's dive right in. Keys to upsetting UCLA. I think this is easier said than done, obviously. They're a top 25 team. They have a really good defense and a really good rushing attack. And Colorado has neither a really good defense and neither a really good UCLA has a really good pass rush and Colorado has a bad offensive line. UCLA is really good at stopping or running the ball and stopping the run. And Colorado's not good at either of those things. So you're like, how does Colorado win this game if all of this stuff doesn't match up? Well, everybody likes to cook and everybody has different recipes for everything. So Colorado's recipe for success against UCLA is going to look a lot different than, say, Oregon State's or Utah's. So, for instance, let's go to the Utah game. Utah wins against UCLA 14-7. They go up 14-0 in the second. Well, they scored one in the first and then one in the second. So they go up 14-0. And then in the fourth quarter, UCLA gets a late touchdown to get them to 7, and then they weren't able to score. And here's the key. Dante Moore threw a costly interception, and then UCLA also had a total of 3 fumbles, ended up losing one of them. So that's not great for them. So you got to make them turn the ball over, is what we see. Colorado's pretty good at that. At one point, they were the top-ranked team in the country in turnovers forced. And then you go to the Oregon State game. This game, Oregon State wins 36-24. Dante Moore throws 3 picks. I think one of them went for a pick 6, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so one of them went for a pick 6, and which, I mean, that's pretty crazy. Oh, wait, no. Did it? Yeah. One for a pick 6, one for 24 yards, and one for 13. Sorry, the app was loading. But he throws 3 picks, and then also they run for 133 yards, and DJ Uyunglele torches them for 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then their backup quarterback, Aiden Childs, also got a passing touchdown in there. So, common theme, force UCLA to turn the ball over. That is very possible for Colorado. They were at one point ranked the number 1 team in the country in terms of turnovers gained. They haven't had as many as of late, but they still are forcing turnovers every once in a while. They got one against Caleb Williams, and they got a couple. I think they got one against Arizona State as well. So this Colorado team has the ability to force turnovers. It just hasn't been happening as frequently as they would have liked. Oh, they didn't get a turnover. They forced a fumble. Didn't recover it, though, against ASU. Excuse me. But they could still force them. This Colorado team's frisky. They go to the ball. Hat to ball is what they do. They got Travis Hunter. They got Amarion Cooper. And Trevor Woods is now at linebacker. So they have a lot of guys on the field that can force turnovers. So you got to force UCLA to turn the ball over. We don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for UCLA. I just watched him play last week in person against Stanford, and it was Ethan Garbers. He played really well, and I don't see why it wouldn't be him unless Chip Kelly wants to give the young freshman another chance. But I think another thing to look at is the fact that UCLA hasn't really faced an offense as prolific as Colorado's. So if you go through UCLA's schedule, you see they beat Stanford, they beat Oregon State, who has a really solid offense, but they're a very balanced like rush offense that uses play action to get their pass going. Cam Ward against Washington State, they kind of limited him because obviously their defense is so good, and they forced him to throw 2 picks, and then they also sacked him a total of 3 times. So they got to him frequently. Utah, 3rd string quarterback, didn't play well, or it was 2nd string, 3rd string, however you want to rank the Utah quarterbacks, because they keep flipping. He is currently the 3rd string quarterback. At that time, he was the backup. And then they beat North Carolina Central by 52 points, which isn't saying much. San Diego State 25. San Diego State's a struggling team, and then they beat Coastal Carolina by 14. So they have not faced an offense that is this electric. They've kind of benefited from facing. I think Washington State would have been the closest thing, but at that point, Washington State was kind of struggling already. They were 13-1, and they had just escaped Oregon State, and then they went on to lose against UCLA, and then that triggered their little 2-game skid right here, or 3-game skid, excuse me, where they lost to Arizona, and then they lost to Oregon as well. So Washington State, not the same team that we thought they once were. I think they were benefiting from just sheer scheduling luck. I don't know. They just not the same team. So Shedeur Sanders needs to have a big game. They need to figure out a way to protect him long enough so he can get the ball in the playmaker's hands, whether it's Jimmy Horn Jr., Travis Hunter, Xavier Weaver, whoever it may be. Let him get the ball in their hands and good things will happen. It's that simple. If you could run the ball, that'd be great. No one's really run the ball against UCLA. It is what it is. But yes, don't force them to turn the ball. You got to force them to turn the ball over. Get Shedeur Sanders going, which, I mean, he's typically always going. Shedeur Sanders is that guy. I think over the last few – Shedeur Sanders has technically had, outside of the Oregon game, which was just a rough showing overall for everyone in Colorado, I would say Shedeur Sanders has had his worst couple games over the past few weeks. And like Stanford, he still threw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. ASU, he threw for 239 yards, completed 61% of his passes, and had a touchdown. And then USC, that was a tough game for Colorado as well. He threw for 370 yards, and they obviously almost came back. And so Shedeur Sanders, even his bad games are pretty good games. So just get him going. That would work out. And then don't turn the ball over. Colorado doesn't really turn the ball over. Shedeur Sanders only has, I think it's 3. Yeah, he only has 3 interceptions on the year. And then running wise, they don't really utilize the run that much. And this isn't going to be the week to do it. I know a lot of people in the comments are telling me if Colorado just runs the ball more, they'd be a better team, which I agree. But this is not the week to try to get the run established. You could try it, but UCLA has one of the best rush defenses in the country, and it's just not something where it's like, you know what, this is going to be the week where the run game comes together, because it's not going to be the week. Probably, most likely, it could. You never know, but most likely it won't be. So those are my 3 keys. I'll go over them again. Forced turnovers against UCLA, whether it's Ethan Garbers or Dante Moore. They've been prone to turning the ball over. Ethan Garbers didn't turn the ball over once last week, but Stanford secondary is very young and inexperienced. This Colorado secondary is much more savvy, and they're much more experienced in terms of forcing turnovers. Shedeur Sanders needs to have a big game. If Colorado wins, Shedeur Sanders will probably have at least 400 yards passing and a few touchdowns. That's just how it shakes out. And then don't turn the ball over. They have a really good defense, but their offense is, I would say, average to above average. So don't give them any more opportunities in easy scoring situations, because they will capitalize on those, and they will make you pay for that. By the way, this episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Athletic Brewing. Let me tell you about my sponsor over at Athletic Brewing Company real quick. These days, we're all looking for that perfect drink or whatever it may be. Now's the time for my game changer of the week. And honestly, my game changer of the week is going to be this bye week last week. For Colorado, they need to build off of that bye week. They need to reset. And so that's my game changer of the week, brought to you by the Athletic Brewing Company. Much like the bye week and the Colorado whole team on the bye week, Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that taste good. Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game by making beers that taste good, full flavor, and well-crafted, just like a full-strength beer. Their brews are great tasting and award-winning, and beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. So, and the best part, they're fit for all times. You can drink them anywhere, anytime, and make an activity even more enjoyable, whether it's watching a big game, you're at your kid's game, tackling a work project, or working out. The best part is there's no hangovers. You can find Athletic in-store, online, and at bars around the country. So if you want to get some Athletic Brewing, go to, let me tell you, first of all, you get a code where you get 50% off. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first time order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com near the beer aisle. Exclusions and conditions apply. Again, that is code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com near the beer aisle. Exclusions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite sporting event or event in general should never be stressful. You shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying tickets. You shouldn't have to plan this years in advance. They have tickets for sports, music, comedy, and theater events all near you with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They have last minute tickets with flash deals, zone deals, and they're easy to find and buy these tickets. So, one of my favorite parts is you get to see the ticket. You ever go to a sporting event and you're like, I don't know, we're not going to know what our view is. We want to have good seats. Game Time literally lets you get a little optical of where you'd be sitting. They have all-in prices that show you your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal without the hitting fees. And with zone deals, you pick the section, and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the Game Time app and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back. We are talking about a recruiting mishap for Colorado. I wrote about this. It's an unpopular subject because it's obviously not a pro. Well, it's not pro. It's just an unfortunate mishap for Colorado. And let's just say they kind of screwed the you know what on this. So during the USC game, they invited a 4-star recruit by the name of Marco Jones, who is the son of former Colorado player Anwan Jones. And apparently, Marco was eventually kicked out of the recruiting area. Marco's father, Anwan, who played Colorado back in the day, tweeted in response to current Colorado commit Talon, Talon Chandler, and had a response that basically showcased that Colorado may have lost a commitment or a possible commit. So the tweet goes as follows, or the X post, whatever you want to call it, goes as follows. So Chandler was posting about Colorado and how great it was, how great the visits were. And then Anwan responded and said, my son Marco Jones was invited to Boulder for the USC game, and he loved it. 4-star linebacker, son of an alum, unreal game experience, all was gravy until they kicked out Marco out of the recruit area after the game and said they didn't know who he was. Marco explained who he was. They said he wasn't on the list and was asked to leave. You kicked my son out and his coach out of the facility and didn't care that they traveled from California. CU Buffs football. I know it's busy in Boulder with all the cool things happening, but no, you treated a blue chipper and the son of a CU Buff like a scrub. And then he continued saying, I'm sad because Marco would have been a great Buff, but the Buffs don't know who he is. I'm a huge supporter of Deion Sanders, and I love what he's doing with the program. I'm going to support all of the recruits that come to CU. It's too bad Marco won't be one of them. This one must have slipped through the cracks onto the next. And then when people were questioning, like, oh, they probably didn't know who he was. He's probably not that good. He probably wasn't supposed to be there or whatever. Posted a picture of him with the 2 lanyards on. He has the recruiting, like, it says Marco Jones, and then there's a picture of him with Jaylen Brown, who was at the game, and then a picture with him with Deion Sanders. And then to make matters worse, they had his little on his recruiting badge. It said Marco Jones, wide receiver, and he is a linebacker, top 110-ish recruit. He's ranked number 106 in the country. Has offers from Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame, Texas, and USC, among other powers, and seemed really interested in going to Colorado. So that's a tough loss, especially when you look at how Colorado's defense looks right now. They're ranked 130th in the country in defense, so they really could have used his efforts. But this is kind of it's one of those things where I wrote about it and people are upset because my article was about Deion Sanders in Colorado. And they're like, it's not Deion's fault. It's not Coach Prime's fault. It's the recruiting staff's fault. Well, it's like, who oversees the entire staff? Who put together this staff? Unfortunately, that falls under the Coach Prime thing. And so it's his program. You get praised for all the good things that happen, and you get people go after you for all the bad things. And so this is kind of a tough one because obviously you never want to see a recruit or anybody be mistreated. And Coach Prime kind of getting the bad end of the stick here because someone's going after him. A former player is saying, you treated my son poorly, and now you lose him and you kind of lose his support in a way. And so tough scene. You hate to see it. I think maybe Coach Prime will kind of try to rectify what happened, but being that the USC month or the USC game was like a month ago, it's kind of tough. But yeah, Colorado appears to have missed out on a very talented recruit, which you hate to see. And also, it's just not something that you ever want to see in general, where someone is kind of belittled and shoved to the side like that. But it's what happened. Colorado still looking to build their class. And for people saying, oh, it doesn't matter, he'd be their second highest rated commit behind Antoine Hill. And he'd be the second highest rated commit if he was in this year's class as well. So tough loss for someone who seemed really eager to go to Colorado and on the defense side of the ball and at linebacker, where they have some depth issues right now, because obviously Trevor Woods is moving from safety to linebacker due to the Jawan Mitchell issues. So tough stretch there. Either way, Colorado moves on, and they have a huge stretch to focus on in these next coming weeks. But before I talk to you about the importance of their final stretch, I got to tell you about the importance of our sponsors over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. You just select 2 or more players, you pick more or less on their projected stats, and then you place your entry. Testing my skills on Prize Picks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. With PrizePicks reboot policy, your entry stays in play even if one of your players gets injured. For NFL games and college football top 25 matchups, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with insurance injury. So if you want to get in on this fun, go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for a first deposit match up to $100. And it's highly enjoyable. And of course, it's daily fantasy sports made easy. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. We are talking about the final stretch of the college football season for Colorado. I just want you guys to know that I think Colorado can upset UCLA this weekend. I think that UCLA hasn't really faced an offense that is as explosive as Colorado's. And if Colorado's defense can force a turnover here or there, things could go their way. If they can't force turnovers and the offense gets off to a slow start again, this will be a tough loss. This will be their 4th loss in their past 5 games. And they're going to have a tough stretch down the rest of the way. And so saw this great article talking about how Colorado's final 5 games will kind of determine how the season is remembered. And so I think the season starts off, Colorado's 3-0. They're the pinnacle of college football. They are the hub of college football. And it's like, everything's great. Everything's great. And then they lose to Oregon. It's like, okay, not the best thing, but Oregon's a really good team. Top 10 offense and defense. And then they lose a close one to USC. And it's like, they could have won that game had a few things gone their way. And then they beat Arizona State. So it's like, okay, back on track. They're 4-2. They're projected to have 3.5 wins. And then they play Stanford. They're blowing them out. And they end up losing. Somehow, some way, they give up a 29-point lead, which was not great. So then, now they have a tough schedule ahead of them. They have, let me just pull up their schedule real quick. They have remaining on the schedule, number 23 UCLA. Then they have number 11 Oregon State. Or no, number 11 Oregon State, then Arizona. Number 17, on November 17th, Washington State, and then number 13 Utah. So tough final stretch. They have 3 ranked teams, and then Washington State was ranked, and Arizona is looking like a team that could be ranked. And so it's like, where do they get the win? And so this final stretch, I realistically think that for this season to be considered a success by the college football world, they'd have to make a bowl game. For the season to be considered a success in terms of people who just were watching this program and like looking at how bad they were last year, it's already been a success. The program's popular. The program has won some big games, and the program is headed in the right direction. That's a success to me. But people want to see wins. They want to see them make it to a bowl game, because obviously that was the expectation that Coach Prime put on them. And so this is a quote that stood out to me. Also, by the way, ESPN's FPI gives Colorado a 29% chance to win 6 games. So that means to make a bowl game. And they give them, because I think a lot of people are hoping that Colorado could kind of dominate this last stretch, they give them a 0.1% chance of winning out. And so that'll be interesting to say the least, because obviously it's going to be a tough one. So this is what they had to say in this article that kind of stood out to me. And he says, the pressure now, though, isn't about the preseason predictions. The pressure comes from how those expectations evolved and were espoused from within the program as the team started 3-0. And so Sanders, it talks about how Sanders called out Ed Warner, asking him if he believed. And so now the article says, so now he's speaking to the country. The clip made the rounds on the internet and served as the exclamation point after an impressive victory. It was a moment where it felt like Sanders demanded for the Buffalo's on-field performance be held to a higher standard. And then he says, as in, I've been saying we are good. Here's the proof. And that's a dangerous game to play, it says, in college football after game number 1, but there are 3 wins to open the season. It was clear the Buffs were significantly better from a year ago. Not conference contender better, more like should reach a bowl game better. But if they don't reach a bowl game, and this is me talking, not the article, I feel like everyone will kind of go back to that moment, and it'll go from a great moment to a meme. And so this final stretch determines, from the wide viewpoint of most college football fans, if this season is a meme or a success. I think it could be a success. They just need to make sure that they have more success on offense. They start games better and they finish games. Otherwise, this season could end up being a meme, which would be kind of disappointing because of how it started and how exciting it was to start the year. I will be going live sometime after the game tomorrow. I hope you guys will tune in. We're going to be talking about hopefully a Colorado win. I think they do win. The game's at 4:30, so I'll be going live after the clocks hit zeros, and we'll be discussing the win or the loss and just talking about everything that happened during the game. Hope you guys have a great day. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs. I'm Kevin Borba.